Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always, constantly, at all hours, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
It does feel like this is happening more and more frequently. Like we literally just did an hour standing at a hotel not that far from here.
Not this hotel.
Not this hotel, a different hotel, like 4 hours ago. And then here we are again in a different hotel in northern New Jersey. Tony, I get the sense we're probably not going to be spending a lot of time talking about the Ohio State-Rutgers game.
No, and while we were doing that arrival show and talked with Ryan Day and things like that and discussed the game, towards the end of the show, the news broke that Counter Stallions had been fired by Michigan. And we were already wrapping up at that point. We spent a little bit of time on it, but now we have time to really explore the room and invite questions, super chats, whatever you may have, and we'll get this sorted out.
And I do want to, I saw someone on Twitter vaguely threatening me that this better be something new and not just Counter Stallions. Yeah, no. There's new stuff that has happened since the Counter Stallions thing. I mean, first of all, Counter Stallions, Michigan rushed out to report that Counter Stallions had not been fired.
Right.
He had just resigned. Totally different. Not sure how multiple media outlets got that wrong, but big correction there.
Yeah, and we'll get into the other stuff. I do tend to think that what's going to happen with Counter Stallions is he is literally going to take one for the team on this one, because once he's been fired, like, he has no reason to talk to the NCAA. He'll probably get a show cause or something like that, but I don't know that his future is in college sports at this point. His future, given his skill set, maybe finding kidnapped people. I don't know what else he could do, but clearly he's got a certain set of skills, and he'll probably be okay.
Well, and Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic, who is a Michigan alumna, was alumna is a woman, alumnus is a man. Let's get our conjugations correct. I thought you weren't talking. Nicole Auerbach reports 3 hours ago, Counter Stallions refused to cooperate with any internal or external investigations or discussions, source said. So, in terms of that, this was something that was sort of thrown around a couple days ago, like, hey, this guy is deader than disco. What's going to happen when he figures out he's deader than disco? It sounds like and it was either he's going to sing like a bird or he's going to take one for the team. It sounds like he chose to take one for the team.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily surprise me given the military background. I think, and also maybe even more so, the Michigan super fandom that he has had goes back probably all of his life, but the volunteering over the years since like 2015, flying to Michigan on his own dime, doing volunteer stuff like that for the football program. So I think when you've had that kind of dedication and you've been a part of their success, allegedly, you probably don't want to be instrumental in their downfall or add to it. You've already been perhaps instrumental. You don't want to exacerbate things and make things even worse.
Yeah, exacerbate is exactly the right word, because it feels like you can sort of see this stuff coming down the tracks. And it feels like tonight, one of the reasons we're doing this tonight is because it feels like a lot of folks on the Michigan media side of things have kind of started to see like, oh, that's a train. Okay. I was wondering about that, because this is something that you will see broadly in society, in, let's say political context, hypothetically, where you'll have people living in two separate realities. And it's, the people on one side are listening to the people on their TV stations and getting one version of events, and people on the other side are listening to their TV stations and getting their version of events. And you try and square the two things, and it's like these two things cannot coexist in the same reality. Like one of these groups of people are living in just not in a reality right now based on what they're, and it's not that they're making it up. It's just based on, here's what they're hearing from the people they're talking to. So I'm not accusing anyone of making anything up. It's just, the people they're talking to are telling them these things, and it might be because they are just not aware of other things. And it feels like tonight the rubber band has kind of snapped back a little bit, pretty hard in one direction.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of that. We have a super chat.
We do. First of all, welcome to the 1,150 people that are already on here 5 minutes into the show right now. Mike Smith.
You people are sick.
So was this a resign or you're fired? And we're arguing semantics. The beat writers up there are having a wild day today.
Okay, so Connor Stallions, was he told to resign or you're fired? I mean, this is not something where he has this bright future in college football coaching. Like, he's going to get a show cause from here until the heat death of the universe. So I don't think functionally it matters from that perspective. This might just be, the honorable thing to do. I don't know.
Well, you remember when Jim Tressel was allowed to resign? It was like for retirement and benefits and things like that. Maybe it's one of those things. You get your 2 years of the state benefits that you get to keep or something like that.
As a middle school softball coach, right. I can tell you I am in the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System, and I am really looking forward to my $1.17 a month in 30 years or so. So I gotta say that it does add up. I gotta say.
What do you think $1.37 in 30 years will buy you? Will it buy you $1?
It won't buy me a ticket on the 45-yard line. No. I can tell you that.
No, and certainly not one on each sideline.
No. Do we have any more? Or are we caught up?
No, but I am efforting right now a statement that Stallions and his attorneys provided to The Athletic. I'm working on that right now.
Okay, so we will have that shortly. So I think the first indication that there was something significant coming tonight came from Chris Ballas at the Wolverine. That is the 247, I believe. On 3. That is the On 3 site. Over the place, involving illegal on-site scouting, leading to sign stealing. They were even moving forward on a contract extension for the coach that would have made him the highest paid in the conference, period. Next paragraph, and boy, this line break is doing a lot of lifting here. Sources tell us the Big Ten presented Michigan with, quote, overwhelming evidence of, quote, a plot so extensive that, in the words of one at the meeting, quote, someone should have known. The U of M administration met for some time to discuss the options going forward. As of now, Harbaugh is expected to coach against Purdue tomorrow. Now, that seems like that's not news. You want to listen to that sentence one more time. As of now, Harbaugh is expected to coach against Purdue tomorrow. But more evidence has continued to mount that would, at the very least, put the extension in doubt. This is not expected to prevent the team from competing the rest of the year. Okay, but you want to talk about things that were not in doubt 3 hours ago. This is not expected to prevent the team from competing the rest of the year. We'll continue to provide updates as we get them.
Well, and competing the rest of the year could connote you're still playing, but you're not playing for anything, that sort of thing. I mean, I expect them to play every game this year because you can't punish the other teams and their gates, their tickets that are sold.
And
I would be shocked if they cancel games.
Well, no, they're not going to cancel games. I mean, this is we'll get to the super chat in a second. I would be shocked if they canceled games. That doesn't seem realistic based on the fact that you've got A, gates, B, TV partners. Like, do you think Fox wants the Ohio State Michigan game to go off? Do you think there's going to be some level of interest in the Ohio State Michigan game this year, above and beyond what is normally already the most watched regular season game in college football? I suspect there might be. I would still be a little bit surprised. And now we're delving in, let's be real clear. Now we're delving into speculation. I would still be a little bit surprised if the Big Ten said you're not eligible for the Big Ten championship game. I think that they have kind of, you sort of get the sense that they have gotten the message from the rest of the league, like, hey, you got to do something here. I think that something is going to be done, but the something is going to probably, and I'm still speculating here, probably be short of you can't compete for the Big Ten championship.
And to me, I don't think the coaches would see that as something. I think they would see that as nothing. If you're allowing them to, clearly something was done improperly because somebody has been fired for it. And it sure sounds like the coaches either knew or should have known. So if the only punishment is everything is fine, but a coach gets suspended or a couple of coaches get suspended, Michigan's already had coaches suspended this season, and it didn't seem like much of a punishment. And so for this they're doing something that impacts the actual games on the field for over 2 years, nearly 3 years at this point. There's no way the Big Ten coaches, certainly not James Franklin or Ryan Day, are going to want to think that that's an acceptable punishment, that your postseason is still on the line, like your postseason is still fine. All of that is still open. Your trip to Indianapolis is still a possibility.
Yeah.
I want to jump in here because, first of all, as you were kind of reading that statement, the stream went out a little bit. Second of all, I want to address a major issue that people are having in the thread. They are wanting to know why this is a red level podcast. They feel that where is the news on there? So if we could maybe just reiterate that to everybody, where the news is that warranted a 10:30 p.m. Eastern podcast and everything else, because we love our viewers and we don't want them to feel that they've been clickbaited. There's been a lot of that going on these days, but not from us.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back. Apparently the stream went out at one point while we're reading this. I'm going to read this whole thing again from Chris Ballas of the Wolverine on 3. The Michigan administration met with the Big Ten Friday, prepared to fight for head coach Jim Harbaugh and his staff, having taken him at his word that he had no knowledge of analyst Connor Stalions' actions involving illegal on-site scouting, leading to sign stealing. They were even moving forward on a contract extension for the coach that would have made him the highest paid in the conference. Here we go with the paragraph break. Paragraph. Ready? Break. Okay. Sources tell us the Big Ten presented Michigan with, quote, overwhelming evidence of, quote, a plot so extensive that, in the words of one at the meeting, quote, someone should have known. The UM administration met for some time to discuss the options going forward. As of now, Harbaugh is expected to coach against Purdue tomorrow. That we'll get to our next super chat in a second. But more evidence has continued to mount that would, at the very least, put the extension in doubt. This is not expected to prevent the team from competing the rest of the year. We'll continue to provide updates as we get them. Okay, so there were a lot of lines that I read there. I want you to read between them for people who are maybe not looking at that and seeing the things that we are seeing in that report.
Yeah, the tone has shifted from what was previously, where did this information come from? The Ohio State investigation aspect of it being the main crux of a lot of the reporting for the Michigan side. And so for this turn to be like, yeah, boy, things are not going well. Things, the administration is not happy with Jim Harbaugh. And then compound that, like you've got that from the On3, Sam Webb at the Michigan 24/7 site posted that Big Ten doesn't just want Jim suspended, it wants his head. That is clear. They came in with a more drastic tone than anyone was expecting. This is something that he posted on on their board that was presented all over the internet, just like the Chris Ballas thing. That being said, I haven't been told Michigan is acquiescing to the mob. Now, this is still Friday evening. Things are happening, and so basically, just the thrust of this new information in terms of the new attitude, the new twist of it's no longer the conspiracy aspect of this has kind of gone out the window, and it's like reality has set in on some of the Michigan reporting in terms of this doesn't look as easy and quick of a fix as they thought, and this is looking worse and worse for Jim Harbaugh. And this is the Michigan side reporting that.
Right. And you go back 8 hours, and the reporting was, oh boy, is Ryan Day about to go to Club Fed because of something, Rico, something. That was 8 hours ago. And you're now getting, I'm going to read this sentence again. Listen real carefully. As of now, Harbaugh is expected to coach against Purdue tomorrow. As of now, Harbaugh is expected to coach against Purdue tomorrow. Let me read that to you. Let me spell that out for you. There is some question whether Harbaugh will coach against Purdue tomorrow. As of now means there is some question. It doesn't mean Harbaugh will coach against Purdue tomorrow. Now, so that is what? That could be, we'll go through the whole Big Ten sportsmanship thing again, because I'm sure we have new people who have not watched that from the show we did yesterday. There are rules in place, hard and fast rules in place in terms of what the Big Ten can do, what the Big Ten commissioner can do by himself before he needs to go to the Big Ten advisory committee. He can suspend the coach. As of now, he's expected to coach against Purdue tomorrow. That was not the tone of any of this coverage from Michigan 8 hours ago. There has been a major shift in this story, and I feel like there's a little bit of reading between the lines you have to see there. There has been we are telling you now, there has been a major shift in the tone of coverage.
Yeah,
in the
and
story.
then the presentation of it as well, for sure.
Yeah.
Kevin?
I'm trying to get Tom's attention. Go ahead.
Okay.
That means I need to talk to you and Tony talk.
I have nothing really to say. But we had a super chat there.
Yes, Uptown Daniel. That's the next most current one.
Okay, so Uptown Daniel says, how long do we have till Harbaugh is not on the sideline realistically?
Well, here's the one tiny little interesting aspect. Tomorrow night's game is a night game. So there's some likelihood that if it had been a noon game, maybe he would be coaching and something happens during the day to change that. But the likelihood that he's not coaching in the game tomorrow, it's such a dramatic change, drastic thing that I'm always just assuming he'll be there until he's not, because it is a much larger step. But as we've talked about in the past, Tony Petitti can suspend him for 2 games pretty much whenever he wants to, basically as the harshest punishment that he can hand down on his own for any sort of infractions that he is deemed worthy of it. The way things are going right now, Friday night at 10:37, things don't look great for Jim Harbaugh, but I don't know if they look so bad that he's not coaching tomorrow. But the fact that it's still up in the air in terms of people are talking about it being up in the air, that to me is legitimate.
And here's another report just out now, again, from Chris Ballots at the Wolverine, who was the person 8 hours ago who was telling us all about Ryan Day and New Hampshire and something Rico something. As we've said, in these kinds of cases, it's about stacking good days together. Today wasn't one of those. If Michigan doesn't act on Jim Harbaugh, and it hasn't yet, and as we've said, the plan is for him to coach Saturday night. So the plan is for him to coach Saturday night against Purdue. Sources believe the Big Ten could levy an, quote, indefinite suspension as soon as Monday, after which Harbaugh's only recourse would be to file an injunction to keep coaching. If he gets the right judge, he could continue coaching for months as long as Michigan supports him. We do believe President Santa Ono, University of Michigan president, could support that, even with the new evidence emerging, which is likely to claim at least one more assistant coach at the end of the year. If anything else damaging comes out, though, they probably wouldn't have a choice. And again, the NCAA has just started its investigation. You see why we're threat level red right now? Have we spelled it out enough? And again, the NCAA has just started its investigation. Again, as some present said, quote, if he didn't know, he should have. And the Big Ten came out swinging and didn't back down. They made some big threats. I think some are interested to see if they are ready to back those up. As for analyst Connor Stallions, he has a lawyer. I don't think he'll be talking to anyone if Harbaugh is suspended or can't coach. Offensive coordinator Sharon Moore will probably be the guy, which is interesting because we just talked about, one assistant is not potentially, could be implicated in this. So apparently that's not Sharon Moore.
Well, he's already been suspended once this year,
He has, yes. And if nothing further comes out implicating Moore, for example, that could be the case for the foreseeable future. Again, everyone, Big Ten, NCAA just seems to want Harbaugh. And then goes on from there. But I mean, that's I certainly hope that everyone in the comments is kind of going, okay.
Well, it's clear.
They're not.
Well,
They're all fighting.
well, okay.
Well,
I mean,
that's as long as everybody's getting along. But the coaches and the ADs definitely want Harbaugh to pay for this. And I'm not talking about a suspension, something legitimately heavy they want to see. It's not a pound of flesh. It's a pound of flesh for each game where these infractions took place. And based on the circumstantial, the reporting, you're talking about 2021 and on. So, 14 games in 2021, 14 games in 2022, and however many games so far, 8 games in 2023. It's a lot of flesh there that Big Ten coaches are going to want. And you're attacking the very fabric of the fairness of the game when you're doing this with all of this going on. And I wonder what kind of evidence was pointed to them to where like the overwhelming aspect of the first Chris Ballas thing in terms of the coach should have known. Is it how much footage of there is with Jim Harbaugh talking to Stalions talking in his direction, like the answers to this. Why is this recruiting analyst speaking to you on the sideline? What is he saying? What is being conveyed there? And why is he always right next to both of your assistants?
Right. And I'm interested in, and there's a lot we still don't know. I think we've been very forthright with everyone from day one. Number one, we're trying to not get out over our skis in terms of what do we know and what do we think it means. I think if you've been following us, I think we've been pretty fair about that all from day one. And I think this is one of these times where there is stuff that we have heard that has been, some of it's been out there, some of it's not really been out there in terms of, boy, if this is true, and we don't know if it's true, we have not, we haven't gotten it confirmed, so we haven't reported it. But there is some, boy, if this is true stuff out there that maybe that's what the Big Ten heard. Maybe that's what Michigan found out about or heard about or whatever earlier tonight. Maybe it was something else entirely. There's a lot of, it feels like there are a lot of shoes kind of hanging in the air, and we don't know yet what does the NCAA know specifically. What does the NCAA know? There's lots of rumors, there's lots of reporting, there's lots of sourced, hey, here's what I'm hearing. We're getting all that, and we're not blasting it all over the place because we don't have it confirmed, and that's not our job as reporters to blast unconfirmed stuff out there. Depending on what it is, that can, that might implicate different people. It might be what you said in terms of, who had access to what, who is talking to him. And, I think we're past the point where, Connor Stalions, low-level recruiting analyst, like everyone knows he's not the cultural attaché at the embassy, right? Like we all kind of understand, like, yeah, he's the CIA spook, right? Like we've got that. I think you do, to your point, potentially run into a plausible deniability thing where, hey, this guy is talking to your coordinators. This guy is talking to your head coach on the sidelines. There's new video. People are going through games every day and finding new stuff every day. The plausible deniability gets a little harder when he's, Karnak the Magnificent on the sideline and predicting everything all the time and talking to all these people. Like everyone knows he's Karnak the Magnificent, and no one's like, well, I don't want to know how he does the trick.
Yeah, well, and you, Kevin.
I was going to say we have several super chats. We have the Stallion statement that I haven't even really read yet.
Let's do the Stallions.
So you tell me where you want to go.
Okay, let's knock out like 2 super chats. We start getting through those, and then we're going to get to the Stallion statement. Okay, so from
Glasswing is correct.
Okay, so Glasswing Butterfly, wonderful, valued member of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Always glad to see you on here. What is a show cause? Sounds like something from Glee. So a show cause
That's a
is
show too.
Yes, a show cause is. It's a cause, not clause. Show cause. It is something that the NCAA can issue if a coach has violated rules. That coach gets fired as part of the investigation. Any school that wants to hire that coach in the future must show cause that they have reason to do that. So it's basically, okay, Coach X has cheated in some way. If you want to hire him in the future, you must show us a reason that we should allow you to hire him, because we know that he cheated in the past. Why should we allow you to hire him in the future? functionally it renders you almost unhireable in the college sports world.
Yeah, it's a scarlet letter / probation type of thing that if you're going to do this, just know that we're going to be watching, and if something else happens, it's going to be on you and on your program.
Super chat from Matthew Eater. I subscribed to the Huddle today based on your excellent coverage of this. Thanks, Kevin, Tom, and Tony. We are, of course, at BuckeyeHuddle.com. If you want to support us, that's a great way. You want to become a member there, that's a great way to do it. We have we cover, of course, the Ohio State team. Got Mark Giva. Occasionally, every once in a while, we're in New Jersey right now. I don't know why. I don't know why we're not in Ann Arbor, but we're in New Jersey for some reason. Ohio State plays Rutgers tomorrow. We might cover that. We'll see. Mark Givler covers recruiting. Ohio State just got a crystal ball for a 5-star defensive back, Devin Sanchez. So going to be some recruiting stuff. We've got a fantastic X's and O's team that really make you smarter football fans, make me a smarter football fan. So that's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. You can become a member today. We have a message board there that is members only. That oh boy, has that been an active place the last few weeks. So you can support us there at BuckeyeHuddle.com. If you want to do something right now to support us, you can hit the thumbs up button. That is a nice thing you can do as well. Mike Farino says, "What do you think the nuclear options are?"
The nuclear options. I think the nuclear options only involve the coaches. I don't think they involve, in terms of the team. The postseason would be the nuclear option for the team this year. No postseason, but I do expect the games to continue to be played. Nuclear options for the coaches, coordinators, head coach, gone. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if we're talking worst possible outcome for Michigan, the nuclear options for Michigan, you've got the top 3 coaches who have been seen just on the sideline going over plays and whatever with counter stallions. So like that guilt by association there for those 3, but using that stuff to be able to, whether I'm not saying that all of that stuff was what won them the games, but you're still cheating during the games. So there's going to be punishments for that. So I think the nuclear option would just be no postseason. And then you might have 3 new, obviously if you have a new head coach, you're going to have new coordinators at some point. So I'm not saying all of that is going to happen, but if you're asking for the nuclear option, no postseason, new coaches.
Yeah. And again, I think we have been pretty careful about not getting way ahead and not wanting to speculate too much on stuff.
But if you ask,
that's what the nuclear option might look like. I think it's pretty unlikely that they decide that they're not going to let them play in the Big Ten championship game no matter what. And this would be whatever the nuclear option is in season. That has to come from the Big Ten, not from the NCAA. The NCAA, by its bylaws, has to issue a notice of allegations, and then Michigan has 90 days to respond. So that means there's no way that the NCAA could level any sort of in-season punishments against Michigan. So, whatever would have to come, anything and everything that would come in season has to come from the Big Ten. I don't expect the Big Ten to do anything in terms of rendering them ineligible, but
how badly do you think the Big Ten wants Penn State and Ohio State to beat Michigan?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a boy that makes a lot of your problems go away. If Penn State beats Michigan and then Ohio State beats Michigan, then Michigan is going to the whatever Peach Bowl to play Air Force, and that at that point, Michigan might say, like, what if we self-imposed a bowl ban? I don't think. Yeah, I don't expect that to happen. Michigan is still very good. I think Michigan has benefited from whatever has happened, he said, gesturing vaguely. I think Michigan has substantially benefited from that. I also think Michigan's a real good football team this year. So they could still beat Penn State and Ohio State. That's a possibility.
We'll get to the super chats, but the sentiment that I heard a couple times on the radio today driving here is that if Michigan already had 2 losses, the bowl ban would already be in effect. Like the punishments would already be handed down. Do you agree with that?
I think that, Michigan would have self-imposed. I don't think Michigan would have self-imposed anything before, 8:00 tonight. I don't, based on the tone of coverage out of Ann Arbor, I don't think Michigan was prepared to self-impose anything. Tonight feels like maybe you've seen that sort of swing the other direction. I don't think the Big Ten would have rushed out to do it. I think you could ultimately, if Michigan has 2 losses, you could see the Big Ten impose something. And then it's look, we did a big thing and it didn't really cost Michigan anything. I don't think you would have seen that a week ago or anything like that. Super chat from AZ King says, hit the like button. It's free. Can we get to the statement from Connor Stallion's attorney? Yeah, let's hit that real quick.
Let me drop this off and let me go up here.
Yeah, we have lots of breaking news. Okay, so this is a tweet from Bruce Feldman. As he informed the school earlier today, Connor chose to resign because recent stories regarding his time with the University of Michigan have created a distraction from the team, Beckworth said. He hopes his resignation will help the team and coaching staff focus on tomorrow's game and the remainder of the season. Connor also wants to make it clear that, to his knowledge, neither Coach Harbaugh nor any other coach or staff member told anyone to break any rules or were aware of improper conduct regarding the recent allegations of advanced scouting.
What I saw in there, or what I didn't see, any admission of guilt in terms of any cheating or just the allegations. If people are talking about this, I just want to know, whatever you're talking about, the coaches had no idea about what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a statement from an attorney. Yeah. So an attorney is not going to incriminate his own client. So that's not really a surprise. I mean, that really, that really, yeah, I'm reminded. Go ahead.
It goes back to the fact that being the good soldier, taking one for the team, the whole thing of, I don't want to be a distraction for the team, I'm stepping away, go blue, basically is what that statement says.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hey, listen, I'm doing a selfless act. That's exactly. I mean, you can kind of tell what an attorney's letter is going to be. It's I'm committing this selfless act and stepping aside for the benefit of others, because that's the kind of humanitarian, that's how an attorney frames that.
I think you can find that on Google in a template on that. If you just Google that and you just put in the names and stuff like that.
Ravia Tutube super chat. Don't we want to beat Harbaugh while he is still on the sideline? Feels like it's better to suspend him for the next season, where they expected to stink anyway, given their expected personnel losses.
I guarantee Ryan Day wants to beat Jim Harbaugh on the field this year. He would much rather beat Michigan with Jim Harbaugh there than beat him without Jim Harbaugh there.
Yeah, but I think also the rest of the Big Ten, I think, any kind of immediate action that happens, and again, nothing has happened yet. Jim Harbaugh is, as of now, expected to coach against Purdue on Saturday night. But the question is, what happens after that? And anything that happens after that in terms of a 2-game suspension, and we need to go through the Big Ten sportsmanship guidelines again, just so we get everyone on the same page. A lot of that feels like, the broad consensus of Big Ten coaches, and seems like Big Ten athletic directors maybe as well, is that you don't want to let him beat the posse out of town. We'll let him coach the rest of the season, and then justice will come during the offseason. And then, Mark Davis hires him to coach the Raiders, and then what happens?
Yeah, no. Justice in terms of what the Big Ten coaches and probably the Ohio State coaches, justice starts this season and then goes beyond it, but it has to start this season based on what these coaches have been telling the Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petitti, and what they've told their athletic directors, and what those athletic directors have conveyed to Petitti. They don't want this to go untreated, and a 2-game suspension, I think, would just be the start of it. And that would be okay, that's fine. The coaches say that's fine, but that's not the end of it.
Yeah. And can we start? Let's hit 2 more super chats, and then let's go through.
We get 2 or 3 more. We're caught up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're gonna hit a couple more super chats, and then we're gonna go through law school. It will not be as painful as I'm making it sound, I promise. But this is we need to kind of go through you got to eat your vegetables a little bit to really understand this, because there's been a lot of misinformation out there about this stuff, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page. We're all using primary source documents, all the real sexy journalism talk that you love. We'll get to that in a minute, but let's start with Mike Smith. I saw that Ward Manuel wasn't in that meeting. That seems strange to me, but I'm not well versed in this type of stuff. Is it normal that for the AD to not be in the meeting with Ono and the Big Ten? I don't know. I mean, this is the meeting presumably that happened on Friday night that he's referencing there, that Tony Petitti was in Ann Arbor for the Big Ten field hockey tournament and then met with Santa Ono, who is the University of Michigan president. Petitti reports to the president. He does not report to the athletic directors. He does not report to the football coaches. The university presidents of the 14 Big Ten institutions are Tony Petitti's bosses. So this may have been a, like, let's just have a real, I mean, it sounds like it was a little bit of a come to Jesus meeting, but let's sit down and just the two of us go through this and not have anyone else in the room so we can have a one-on-one conversation. That's how I interpret that.
Yeah, and I don't know where that came from. I haven't heard that, but if it is, it's just two high-level people having a high-level conversation, and the athletic director is not on that level. And that gives you an idea of how high-level that stuff is. If it's just the president and the commissioner talking about all of this and not getting it's beyond, really, when it goes to this scope, it's beyond the athletic director. And This is a university thing, and the other university presidents are going to be involved. Obviously, like you said, they are Tony Petitti's bosses, and the athletic directors have already weighed in. So now it goes to the next level, and it does not go above these levels. And so we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, I mean, keeping the athletic director out of that conversation, it's just like, well, it's, for your eyes only type of thing. Like we'll tell you what happened, but we're going to have our own conversation first.
Well, and if you want to read the tea leaves out of Michigan, and we're going to be delving into speculation now, and this is a little bit of interpreting some of the news and rumors and reports that have been coming out of Ann Arbor this week. Santa Ono has been the one publicly tweeting support for Michigan's football program and, Jim Harbaugh, and, and you have sort of heard from people connected to the Michigan program, like maybe there's not totally Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh on the same page. Safe to say that that's been representative. So if you're looking at hey, we need to get someone on the same page in terms of Jim Harbaugh's future or perhaps lack of future, Ward Manuel may be a little closer to that page than Santa Ono was, potentially, before tonight. This is all speculation. None of this is reporting. This is all just sort of looking at different things that we've sort of come to understand over the course of this week, public statements that have been made or haven't been made. It feels like if you had to sell someone on, like, hey, there might need to be a change at some point, Santa Ono was maybe the person who you needed to sell that on, and Ward Manuel might have been more on that page before this. Not reporting, just sort of connecting some dots that have been sort of out there in Michigan media and elsewhere this week. Super chat from David Turkoleski. He did not put anything in there, but we appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys watching, joining us on short notice.
This one will get us caught up.
Yeah. Okay. Super chat from Uptown Daniel. Michigan now will act before the Big Ten and NCAA turn Michigan into a dumpster.
Oh, well, I mean, that's kind of what the Big Ten wants. They want Michigan to act so that they don't have to. It's just a matter of, do Michigan's actions appease what the Big Ten is expecting? And if they put it on the scale, it's like, this is only 8 ounces of flesh. This is not nearly enough. I don't know that anything short of, like, what could Michigan do that would appease Big Ten coaches? I think they would have to say Jim Harbaugh is gone. That might be what it takes for Big Ten coaches to be like, good, that's what should have happened. Because if I had done this, I would be fired for it. And if any of the Big Ten coaches are saying the same thing, if this had been me at my school, I would have been fired for it. And so I think these guys get really, really testy when you start messing with their ability and their team's ability to win games, because Michigan already has an advantage. Like Ohio State has an advantage. The bigger schools, the football schools already have an advantage. When they take that to another degree, Purdue and Illinois already know they're fighting uphill battles, but when you're also like gassing things up to where it's even more of a battle for them, then yeah, you're going to have Purdue's head coach speaking out yesterday or the day before on his coach's show saying these aren't allegations.
Yeah.
This happened. And I would seem to me that Michigan has agreed with them by this accepting the resignation of Connor Stallions, and then like we've talked about here, the change in tone of reporting from the Ann Arbor side.
Yeah, and again, it's important to emphasize nothing has happened yet with Jim Harbaugh. Nothing has happened yet with any other assistants. Nothing has happened yet with the team or the season or any sort of games or vacating games or forfeiting games. Like none of that has happened. This is just us saying like, hey, consider this like a hurricane warning. Like the hurricane's not here yet, but we can see the clouds swirling out in the ocean right now. And it's like, I don't need this to hit land to go like, I wonder if something's happening there. Like something is going on right now. Jason Manley says, thanks for keeping us company on a Friday night. We appreciate you guys keeping us company on Friday. For sure. Otherwise, we'd just be sitting here awkwardly on the couch talking to each other.
We did have somebody ask, who's going to be watching on a Friday night?
Well, we're at 2235 concurrence right now. We've been up over 2,300. So apparently lots of people.
Yeah. It turns out this is kind of a newsworthy story. I think I saw
law school. We got three in the queue that we can get to later.
Okay. So let's go through. This is from the Big Ten sportsmanship policy. This is directly from the Big Ten's website, big10.org. This is their 2022-2023 sportsmanship policy, but I believe it has not been updated. So this is straight from the Big Ten's website. Here's what this is. This is what can the Big Ten commissioner do? What is his area? What are his areas of oversight? What can he do? What can't he do? What does he need approval from other people for? This is all stuff that I promise, like, just hang with us here for a couple minutes. We're going to eat our vegetables and you're going to understand this a little bit better. And we're all going to be on the same page. Because if you're trying to do this on Twitter and figure stuff out, like you're getting stuff from Twitter that's like, you've got people on Twitter arguing like, no, there's only 3 downs and then you have to turn the ball over. It's no, I'm pretty sure there's 4, not 3, not 5.
5 in Colorado.
But you have people arguing whatever, and it's like, let's just, what is the rule in journalism? Number 1, follow the money. Number 2, go back to your primary sources. So let's go on the first page from the Big Ten's sportsmanship guidelines. Authority of the commissioner, 10.2.1, exclusive authority to determine whether offensive actions have occurred. The commissioner shall have the exclusive authority to determine whether an offensive action, as contemplated in agreement 10.01 above, there's a lot of numbers here, has been committed by anyone referenced in agreement 10.1 above. In making this determination, the commissioner may accept any evidence that he or she deems relevant. The commissioner may accept any information provided by any source, but except as outlined in agreement 10.3.1 below, has no formal obligation to do so. We'll get to 10.3.1 in a minute. 10.2.2, authority to take disciplinary action. In the event the commissioner determines that an offensive action has occurred, the commissioner shall have the authority to impose any disciplinary action in response to the offensive action, subject to the provisions of agreement 10.3.3.1 below. Okay, so this just means the Big Ten commissioner has the right to look and go, hey, that's messed up, yo. And then there are prescribed punishments that he can issue that will address these issues. Next one, I believe the next one is like some of the stuff that he can consider in making this decision. Okay, yeah, here we go. 10.2.3, factors that may be considered when deciding upon disciplinary action. In deciding whether to impose disciplinary action, factors to be considered by the commissioner may include, but shall not be limited to, the following: the general nature or severity of the offensive action, which if we're talking about the severity based on some of the conversations that have come with the Big Ten coaches and the ADs, it seems like the severity of that has been, heightened in the minds of a lot of folks in these conversations. Any injury or damage that results directly from the offensive action, the manner in which the offensive action fits within the context of the rules of the game for the sport at issue, that feels like a relevant one. Any action taken or imposed in accordance with the applicable rules of the game, e.g. actions taken by game officials. the response of and or any action taken by the involved member institutions, the response of and or any action taken by any other entity that may have jurisdiction over the offensive action, e.g. law enforcement, any prior offensive actions as contemplated within this policy. So that's just the stuff that Tony Petitti can sort of look at as he's deciding, hey, how serious of an issue is this in terms of judging severity of punishment. Anything to add before we move on?
No, go ahead.
All right, next up.
Let's
just plow
through
through. We are gonna.
We're down 150 viewers with all this lawsuit.
I promise we're gonna get through this very quickly. This is all relevant information, and then we're gonna be right back to Tony yelling or something. I don't know.
Right.
10.3 procedural elements. 10.3.1 commissioner's discretion, timeliness, and due process. The commissioner has the discretion to pursue or choose not to pursue an investigation as to whether an offensive action has occurred. In the event the commissioner decides to pursue such an investigation, the commissioner shall commence the investigation as expeditiously as possible upon notification that such an offensive action may have occurred. Upon commencement of such an investigation, the commissioner shall determine as expeditiously as possible whether an offensive action did occur. Any involved institution or individual at risk of disciplinary action shall be provided an opportunity, which may be waived, to offer its or his or her position as to whether an offensive action occurred. The time frame within which an institution or individual shall provide it or its or his or her position shall be set by the commissioner and shall be reasonable in light of the circumstances. Upon determination that an offensive action did occur, the commissioner shall, as expeditiously as possible, determine whether disciplinary action shall be imposed, and if so, what it shall be. 10.3.2 notice of disciplinary action. In the event that it becomes clear that an institution is likely to be subjected to disciplinary action, the commissioner shall notify that institution or individual at the earliest reasonable opportunity. Under no circumstances shall the commissioner comment publicly regarding either an investigation or disciplinary action without having first provided notice to any involved institution or individual. My question in all of that, there's a lot there, and I promise we're getting through this. When you look at that last piece, they have to notify the institution. We haven't heard that they've notified the institution. I wonder if that is something that happened at that meeting on Friday, or if that's something that is still to happen and we're going to hear about it later.
Well, maybe that's what we're hearing about now, which is why the complete change in tone that the Big Ten has let Michigan know that something serious is going on, and kind of maybe coincides with this post on the Buckeye Huddle message board taken from something Chris Ballas was responding to. Somebody asked him on their board, on the On3 board, how can anything be nuclear for in-person scouting violations? Are we missing something? And the reply from Ballas said, one Big Ten rep told someone in the athletic department, it's the worst scandal in Big Ten history.
Now, that sounds suspiciously like there might be more information out there that the Big Ten is aware of that might not have dropped publicly, is what that sounds like to me.
Which would, and again, this part is speculation in terms of everything else. Some of the other stuff we had heard, like when that stuff comes out, that would match with being part of the worst Big Ten scandal in history, worst scandal in Big Ten history. Mm-hmm. But again, not sure what that is, and we can't report what that is. But just the tone is the big thing, and not just the tone, like the comments, the responses from people on the Michigan side who have been very, this is Ohio State's doing, that sort of thing, pointing throughout all of this, pointing the focus of the investigation on Ohio State's role in this, rather than why is the NCAA here at Michigan? What kind of problems is Michigan? What kind of problems are coming Michigan's way? When the focus in Ann Arbor for several reporters has been on the Ohio State side of things, that right now that's not even in the picture for what they're talking about, because the storm is there now, and they're reporting on the storm. They're Jim Cantori right now. They're not talking about, well, let's see what the weather is doing in the rest of the Midwest. They're like, storm is here. Yeah, get to your basements.
Yeah, the storm is happening during local on the 8th. Yeah. Like it is here. It is. Yeah, it is. This is no longer a warning or a watch. Okay, I think we have two more. So the first one,
people are howling.
I know. Listen, I'm very sorry. I am a parent. I'm going to make you eat your vegetables. I'm very sorry. This is going to be a minute and a half. It is going to be a minute and a half. This is where the rubber meets the road. What can Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti do about, whatever violations are determined to have occurred? What can he do about it? So let's start with what can he do without the approval of anyone else? Tony Petitti on his own. 10.3.3 categories of disciplinary actions. 10.3.3.1 standard disciplinary action. This is the stuff that he can do by himself without consulting anyone else. If he wants to do it, he can just do it. Standard disciplinary actions shall include admonishment, reprimand, fines that do not exceed $10,000, and suspension from no more than 2 contests. Any combination of the preceding action shall be considered to be a singular standard disciplinary action. Decisions by the commissioner to impose a standard disciplinary action shall be final and are not subject to appeal. So when you're hearing about Jim Harbaugh may get a 2-game suspension, like that's one of the things that's sort of been floating. And you're wondering, where does 2 games come from? 2 games comes from, this is the stuff that if Tony Petitti says, like, I find this to be unacceptable, I am going to punish you, I can give you 2 games, so I'm going to give you 2 games. That's where the 2 games potentially comes from. That's why you see that number kind of floated pretty consistently around, is because that's what Tony Petitti can do. Like, he could do that right now and just say, he has to follow the procedure. So they have to do the official notification of Michigan, which we don't know if they've done that or not. They have to give Michigan what's deemed a reasonable amount of time to respond, which is probably a matter of a couple days, I'm guessing. And then he can say, boom, 2 games.
Yeah. And that's, to me, I think if that happens, that's just the starting point. And then the rest of the investigation or the conversations will take place after that to, during that period to find out if more needs to be done. But, just from what others are saying or reporting on their message boards and to their customers, is this seems pretty serious in terms of what is going to happen to Jim Harbaugh. And at this point, it's almost like Michigan is going to have to convince the Big Ten to calm down a little. And it sure doesn't seem like the Big Ten is really interested in doing that, which also flies in the face of the whole, the playoffs are coming. You don't want to ruin the Big Ten's opportunity to get 2 teams in there. We're not hearing anything in terms of the Big Ten right now is worried about money. This is an image. This is an integrity thing that they seem to be wanting to snap to and take care of.
And we're going to jump to the next graphic in just a second, but there was a super chat that I saw that was relevant to that. There was someone super chatted us earlier, and we'll punch it up later. But they were talking about are the 4 new schools, so Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA. This is from Blake. Do we know if the 4 Pac-12 schools were in the calls? I don't know for a fact, but I can't imagine that they were. They're not members of the Big Ten. They do not become members. They're members of the Pac-12. They are on whatever Pac-12 calls are happening right now. They do not become members of the Big Ten until July 1st, 2024. At that point, they're on the calls. Right now, this is, if they have any role at all, this is setting a tone for them coming in that, hey, this is, this type of stuff is or isn't going to be allowed. We will look the other way. We won't look the other way with whatever ends up being proven. This is how the Big Ten is going to handle this type of situation. Conduct yourselves accordingly.
Yeah, that's an interesting point where you've got new members coming in and you're going to lay the ground rules out one way or another. And it's going to be loud and clear to everybody. Either this is okay or it's not. And if it's not, is it really not or just kind of not? And then we're still going to figure all of that out.
All right. So let's punch up that last one real quick. I promise last one. We're going to get through this in like 30 seconds. So here's the stuff that Tony Petitti would have to go to an external group of folks to get approved punishment-wise. We talked about the fact he can get a fine of up to $10,000, up to 2-game suspension on his own without having to go into anyone else. 10.3.3.2 major disciplinary action. Disciplinary actions exceeding those listed in Agreement 10.3.3.1 above, again, that's the $10,000 fine, 2-game suspension, must receive prior approval by the Joint Group Executive Committee, JGEC. In any case for which prior approval is sought, the JGEC shall provide in writing the involved institution's or individual's position as described in Agreement 10.3.1 above. So that's the Big Ten goes to them and says, hey, here's what you did. Here's what we want to punish you with. The institution gets an opportunity to answer. So they have to, the JGEC shall be provided that response from the institution. The JGAC may only approve, deny, or lessen the proposed penalty. It shall not increase the proposed penalty. Further, the JGAC may not lessen the penalty to a level lower than that for which the approval its approval is required. Review and action by JGAC shall occur as expeditiously as possible, and its decisions shall be final and are not subject to appeal. 10.3.3.2.1 interim action. Last one, I promise. Prior to receiving approval, the commissioner may impose as interim action any lesser disciplinary action, i.e. any disciplinary action for which prior approval would not be required, which shall be in effect until the JGAC has had the opportunity to review and act upon proposed major disciplinary actions. So what that means is Tony Petitti can say, Jim Harbaugh, you're suspended for 2 games right now. Mm-hmm. Hypothetically, we're not saying this is what's going to happen. We're saying if he wanted to, you are suspended for 2 games, and I would like to have it be more, but I need to run it through this other group. You're suspended for 2 games for now, and then this other group has to continue it, weigh it, decide. They can't make it less than 2 games, but they could allow it to be 3 games or 4 games or indefinite or whatever it is. But it might start with an announcement of a 2-game suspension, and then you see where it goes from there.
And who knows when that might happen. Mm-hmm. And that's the crazy thing. Super chats, are we good?
Well, we got. I got your super chats right here. People are just very excited. All right, here we go. Blue Wolverine is your first one.
All right. Blue Wolverine says, "Go Blue. See you after the game." I mean, let's talk for a minute about the game. This is, we actually enjoy talking about football more than we enjoy reading Big Ten bylaws. Believe it or not. I mean, we've been around the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry for 30 years now in some form or another. It is, I think for both of us, every year we greet the beginning of Michigan week with, it is our favorite week of the year, just because sometimes Ohio State wins, sometimes Michigan wins. It is the best thing about either school is that rivalry and that game. It is my favorite thing about covering Ohio State is covering that game, win or lose. There's so much on the line every year. It's the greatest rivalry in sports. It's so much fun. I was there in 2006, which I thought, well, this will never be topped. If it's number 1, number 2 this year, and you got all this stuff going on, whether Jim Harbaugh is there or not there, or whoever is there or not there, holy smokes, the storylines around this game.
Yeah, and it's going to start as soon as the previous the week 11 or, the games before that. Once they're done, then boom, it's Michigan week, it's Ohio State week. The focus goes entirely on that, and it's going to be difficult, I think, for both to remain focused on the opponents leading up to that. But the amount of
we've talked a lot about Rutgers this week. What do you mean?
The amount of coverage, but the talking, the excitement for that one it's even if they aren't 1 and 2, if they're both still undefeated, with this whole thing circling around, because you have some narratives going on. For the Michigan side, you beat Ohio State without any sign stealing. Boom. The sign stealing never wasn't a factor. Ohio State goes in there and beats Michigan. Boom. Everything you've done for the past 2.5 years is completely wiped out and proven to be all because the signs were stolen, the signals are stolen, all of the subterfuge, all of the deception, all of the cheating. All of that is why you went to the playoffs 2 years in a row, why you won 2 Big Ten championships. All in this one game is going to decide for one group or the other. It's going to confirm all of their suspicions, all of their biases in that one game, and it's going to be fantastic one way or the other. Like the excitement for that, the amount of "I told you so's" from one side to the other, and only one side to the other. Is going to be immense.
Well, and you have all of that, plus
playoffs.
Look at any advanced analytics system, and it's like Michigan won Ohio State 2, Ohio State won Michigan 2, Ohio State's 1 in the playoff rankings, Michigan 3 in the playoff ranking. I mean, it is just everywhere you look. These are universally considered 2 of the very, very best, if not the best 2 teams in the country.
I guess it would be a good game on the field as well.
Yeah, I mean. And I guess we'll see how, we'll see if there's any difference in Michigan's results the next few weeks. Obviously, they're playing better competition starting especially next week against Penn State. What is the I'm fascinated to see what this Michigan team looks like against Purdue on Saturday night, because there's been so much stuff going on. They were off last week, so all of this stuff has been happening for 2 weeks. They could come out and beat Purdue by 70 points, and I go, yeah, okay, I could see it. They could come out and beat Purdue by 3 points and look like garbage, and I could go, yeah, I could see that. I mean, I am fascinated to see that game, and then it only gets more interesting from there.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they compartmentalize everything, all of this going on, if they're even aware of it. I'm sure you have to be somewhat aware of it, but I think the confidence that this team has, the Michigan team has, will allow them to just put this stuff away and focus on Purdue. So I do expect them to be just fine. But yeah, everybody's going to be watching to see the impact of not having the sign stealing guy on the sidelines. And it's become just this national bit of a joke. And now, moving forward, Michigan can stop the laughter, basically, with what happens in these next 4 weeks.
I have more super chats. I just want to leave Mike Ferguson's up there for a second.
Yeah, let's hit the next super chats.
Oh, you don't want to read that one?
Let's hit the next super chats.
You suck.
Eden Sukanovich, thank you very much for your support. Okay, we got a super chat. I wonder what makes you two so confident that Ohio State will beat Michigan this year. Investigations run its course. We want Michigan suspended. Why? Did either of us say that we were confident Ohio State would beat Michigan? I think there's a good, at least 50-50 chance that Michigan beats Ohio State this year. At least. I would have said a better than 50-50 chance before 3 weeks ago, when it was like, oh, Michigan is this unstoppable death machine. And now it's like, okay, now I kind of want to see what the machine looks like now that maybe some external factors have been removed. But Michigan still has pretty darn good play along the lines, and Ohio State's offensive line's a little shaky. And there are areas where Ohio State has advantages, areas where Michigan has an advantage. I would not say I'm super confident Ohio State beats Michigan even now. No,
my pick is off the board right now.
Yeah.
I need to see what Michigan is. And Ohio State still needs to get better. They're going to be an underdog in that game, provided nothing crazy happens.
Provided nothing crazy happens. The Ohio State-Michigan story, 2023.
Have been quite crazy. But Michigan still has J.J. McCarthy. They still have Blake Corum. They still have two very good receivers, good tight ends, decent offensive line, a defensive line that will get after them, good linebackers, a really good secondary. They've got really good players, really good system. Although defensively, the system has maybe been found out a little bit in terms of the signs and things like that. But these are still well-respected coaches and schemes and plans. So I'm definitely not. I wouldn't say I'm confident that Ohio State is going to beat Michigan. Not from what I've seen from either team this year.
No, I think, and I would not be surprised if Ohio State beat Michigan. Not at all. But I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan beat Ohio State this year. I mean, this is a game where, I mean, I have not looked at the projections on the advanced analytic systems or whatever. But at one point I pulled up, it might have been Tyler Shoemaker's system, the T-Shoe index. And he had the game projected as like 32.1 to 32.0 or something like, I mean, it was like, could not be closer. It's going to be a heck of a football game, even setting aside all of the other off-field stuff. Super chat from Jeff Hines. I think they don't want to quote unquote fire Connor Stallions because then it follows that his bosses should be fired. By accepting his resignation, they avoid that implication.
That's an interesting point. Because when we heard the news that he had been fired, on our first live show today, it's like, well, you fired him, so now you've admitted guilt. With the resignation, it's like, well, he just didn't want to be part of the problem. He didn't want to get in the way. He didn't want to draw attention away from the team. So there is a different kind of massaging there of just narrative and things like that.
All right, super chat from T. Christian, and I am reading this verbatim. This is not my reporting. This is not my saying any of this. I am just reading this super chat verbatim. The gambling news from the Weiss investigation is what's being held back. Michigan is going down after that hits. End of me reading the super chat.
Next
that
super
is someone
chat,
else's
please.
words. Super chat from Ferris. As a Michigan fan, only thing I want to know is whether or not Harbaugh was involved directly or otherwise. If so, how much involved?
Well, and the thing with that is it doesn't matter anymore because if this is as extensive as it seems, he should have known. And so, does that save his job? Maybe, but it's still, the program is still, if this is all, so many ifs and so many, once this is found out, and trying to answer questions without speculating is really darn difficult.
You're providing so many ifs and hedges that I think you're trying to make a RICO case against someone, but go on.
But yeah, it doesn't matter in terms of whether or not he was involved at this point, because if his assistants are involved, he should have known. And if it's the scope of this, to just think it's one guy, I think even the ADs, the coaches, Tony Petitti himself is like, come on.
Well, I think you get into a knew or should have known situation where, you can, the Richard Johnson reporting from Sports Illustrated that came out, was it only last week? This has been the longest 2 weeks of my entire life. The Richard Johnson reporting from Sports Illustrated, which was, I think, generally favorable to Michigan in that it reported that, hey, he did this stuff off TV and all that kind of stuff. And that was the one where he had the manifesto. And so like, oh, this guy's crazy. That part of the text I think it was from that. Maybe this was from the Tennessee message board posts that were from January of 2022, and I apologize. There has been a lot of information rattling around my brain the last couple of weeks with regard to this story, and I sometimes struggle to keep the sources of all of it straight. But if it was the Tennessee message board post, this was something that came out 10 months ago. That this is not something that was planted. This is something that was at the time. Here's what I was told, and boy, it sure happens to line up neatly with what we're finding out 10 months later. That it was, basically the people who were doing the scouting, the only rule was you can't talk to Jim Harbaugh. You can't, you have to compartmentalize Jim Harbaugh. So that's a plausible deniability thing. That's, and thing that's a very important point, and I don't have the NCAA bylaw pulled up. I know you were hoping to go back to law school here, but the NCAA bylaw is basically the head coach is responsible for anything that happens beneath him for people who report directly or indirectly to him. So you can't say, oh, I didn't know. That is sort of a result of some of the basketball scandals where it was oh, the head coach didn't know. It was just all this one guy he was pulling the strings behind, it's like the theory from Star Wars Episode 1, where Jar Jar Binks is this bumbling moron, but he's avoiding all of these things. And there's this theory that he was actually supposed to be this one bumbling moron is secretly pulling the strings the whole time. And Jar Jar Stallions has been doing this all, and no one has had any idea. You can't do that anymore. The NCAA learned its lesson from some of the basketball cases, changed the rules, and now, oh, I didn't know as the head coach. That does not fly as an excuse for the NCAA anymore.
Har bonks.
Some of your worst work. David Greenshield.
I was going to say, sorry, it is 11:30.
It is 11:30. Yeah.
I drove 9 hours to New Jersey.
We did drive from Ohio to New Jersey today, uphill both ways. Yes. David Greenshield is, quote, I wasn't aware, or quote, I don't know the Harbaugh plan here. How does it go over with the Big Ten or NCAA? And we just sort of talked about that. I don't know for the head coach. I wasn't aware for the head coach. That doesn't work at all. There's a little more gray area with some of the coordinators. I'm going to be interested to see how the Big Ten / NCAA handles the coordinators, where it's boy, I found pictures of him talking. I wasn't taking pictures of them. And boy, I found lots of pictures of him talking to the coordinators during the game. And then subsequently, everyone else in the world seems to have photos or video or whatever of, boy, he sure seems to be hanging around these coordinators a lot. How is the NCAA or Big Ten going to view Sherrod Moore, Jesse Minter, these guys who are, theoretically they're not covered by the same head coach thing. But what, does the Big Ten view that as a new or should have known situation? And I genuinely don't know the answer to that question because, can they say, yeah, we just thought this guy was really good at stealing stuff off of TV or whatever, or, stealing signs in game. We had no idea about the other stuff. We don't know if there's, was there other information that was accessed somewhere in some provable way? We don't know that. So all of that stuff has to sort of play out. But I think that's going to be probably one of the more contentious pieces of this, because the Harbaugh thing is pretty cut and dry. As the head coach, you're responsible for the other stuff. Coordinators, other assistants, that may be more of a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and I still think there is a level of plausible deniability in terms of for the assistants, where this guy is really good at stealing signs because he's a military guy. So, some would just assume that, like, I've read your resume. You say you can steal signs. I see you're successful at it. The resume proves true. I'm not going to ask any more questions, but what is that level of, this doesn't seem right from the assistants? And, are they asking questions, and do they need to ask questions, or is it just presented to them? I got this off TV, a lot of TV. I've watched a lot of TV, and there is, like I've said before, you can piece some of it together, but you've got to splice in some other stuff in there, and you can't get it all from all 22. You can't get it all from TV. You can't get it all from these two things. So I think there's some, I don't want to ask any more questions because I'll get answers that I don't want to know. I think it's reasonable for us to believe that could happen. But again, let's hear the conversations. Let's hear the real answers, or the answers that they are given, and see if they are believable. See if their bosses believe them. See if their bosses' believe them, and see if Tony Petitti believes any of it.
All right, super chat from Shane Johnson. You realize Michigan State had plays run in, and it could have been 70-0. Yeah, I mean, there are games where it doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, Michigan. I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but Michigan is a better football team than Michigan State this year, and that was true before Michigan State's season completely imploded.
And just because you don't need to steal signs to win, and that doesn't absolve the fact that you're stealing signs and that you got them in a Central Michigan game, or like, you didn't need to do this, and yet you did. So whose fault is that? Is that the fault of Michigan State for not being good enough, or is it the fault of the school going out knowing we don't need to do this, but let's just do it just in case, just to make sure? I don't know, kind of, is that a soft program that would do that, Tom?
Super chat from Eden Sukanovich. Thanks for the previous answer. Just wondering, if the evidence is so damning, why are there reports that Michigan is expediting Harbaugh's contract? I think the timing of those reports was earlier in the day on Friday. That felt like stuff. I think that was something we heard while we were in the car earlier, like this afternoon, back when the story was going to be all about Ryan Day and some private eye in New Hampshire. We are sitting here talking to you right now because there has been a lot of stuff that has happened since that. I suspect, and I think that might have been directly addressed in one of the reports from Chris Ballas at the Wolverine that we cited earlier, from Chris Ballas at the Wolverine, this evening, more evidence has continued to mount that would at least put the extension in doubt. So this is the information you have is pretty recent, but it is not the most recent information that you're citing there. Maybe the extension goes through, but the overall trend line of what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what Michigan side people who have been reporting this pretty strongly in the everything's A-OK, 2 thumbs up, sunshine and roses way for weeks, all of that has taken a turn on multiple sites, multiple sources, all at the same time. That's why we're sitting here on a couch in New Jersey talking to you right now.
Friday at 11:30. The things that the contract thing, when, I don't know, it was a day or two ago, talking about how that was being expedited or it was going to be put back in front of him, and some of the speculation was that there's going to be language in there about being fired for cause or changing things like that. So whenever something new would come out, you'd have it presented from the positive and the negative. Like the positive side of it for Michigan, oh, he's getting the new contract, everything's fine, they're going to stand by him. And then the negative is like, yeah, but you got to read the fine print of what the contract actually is. It's kind of like a poison pill type of thing. And if he signs it, he's doomed. And, who knows where the truth is in any of that. But the extension has not been signed. Maybe we wake up tomorrow and boom, the extension has been signed and there's some maize smoke coming out of Schembechler Hall.
Yeah, that doesn't feel super likely to me right now based on the way this whole story has kind of changed. One thing that hasn't changed, M. Potsy 710 Super Chat. I think both Michigan and Ohio State fans can agree on one thing. None of us got anything done at work this week.
No, you're absolutely right. This is not a very productive week in terms of talking to the people, which is always great. But there's a lot of refreshing going on, a lot of F5s, things like that. And, it's not like you're striking out when you're hitting refresh because something, you start to go, I don't know if it's shakes or you get the hunger. It's like something has to be happening pretty soon. Like it's been like 5 hours and then boom.
5 hours, it's been 5 minutes.
You get the drip. You're like, oh, I almost starved to death.
It has been and it's been not just a fascinating week because of how quickly it feels like the story has changed. Because, tonight, this story has changed. We were in the car and there were a lot of people online feeling real good about Michigan. And oh boy, this story is about to go 180 degrees. And then here we are talking about none of the stuff that was getting talked about 8 hours ago. And, it has changed so quickly and it has swung back and forth in a way where you'd hear, this is coming next, or, hey, watch out for this. And then sometimes it would come and sometimes it wouldn't. It was like, okay, well, is that wrong? Or is that just not come out publicly yet? And then you'd have, Jim Harbaugh's contract has been pulled off the table. Jim Harbaugh's contract is back on the table. Jim Harbaugh's contract is back off the table. It has been just like, I'm sure for Ohio State and Michigan fans, there have been these wild emotional swings this week. And, you would have at the same time, there were a friend of mine texted me. I woke up this morning to text from a friend of mine who I'm just going to read the headlines to you. Big Ten commissioner has nothing but bad options as pressure to punish Michigan grows. Purdue coach Ryan Walter says school has evidence of Michigan scouting. Purdue football team captain takes exception to cheating accusations. Big Ten reportedly unlikely to act on Michigan scouting scandal. That was this morning. The same day we are living in right now. Those were all coming out, overnight last night. This has been wild to follow.
It is, and the interest in it, I don't know that we've seen anything like it in terms of the Michigan side, the Ohio State side. Just what makes this thing so great in terms of this rivalry is that
I don't know if that's what makes the
rivalry.
No.
You can always revel in the other side, like Michigan when Taggate was going on. Michigan fans were having a grand old time, and you see the interest. But we've got a ton of Michigan fans watching as well, so we welcome everybody for sure.
And we appreciate the Michigan fans being here because I think that means that they view us as doing, treating this
the Lord's
fairly,
work.
Hopefully. I don't think they view us as doing the Lord's work, but hopefully they view us that we're doing this fairly, and we're trying to be as
stupid and terrible.
Well,
they're saying.
That they're saying that to you. So, and that's fair.
They'll take us right up here.
It probably won't. This has been, I think, a complete roller coaster for Michigan fans, Ohio State fans, and I cannot wait for the Ohio State-Michigan game this year. It's in Ann Arbor. What is the reception for Ryan Day going to be like in Ann Arbor? Who's going to be on the sideline for Michigan? We have been through some wild Ohio State-Michigan games. I have no clue what to expect. And the game's 3 weeks away.
How long do the boos last?
As long as the booze lasts.
Yeah, boy.
Second quarter?
Yeah. Well, I remember going up there as an Ohio State student, and they would boo, boo, boo all the players, and they would announce John Cooper, and the crowd would cheer, and it was like, oh boy, I'm getting a vibe in here that does not feel like it's going to go well for Ohio State.
So you think they're going to cheer Ryan Day?
I suspect that they will probably not cheer Ryan Day. I am fascinated to see what that. I mean, that's going to be that whole week is going to be a circus. I mean, even on the scale of Ohio State, Michigan, where that week is a circus every year, that is going to be. I mean, like, put up the big top, like that's like a 5-ring circus this week.
It might be time for HBO to come back for another documentary.
Man.
Well, they did the 2006 was the last one.
Yeah.
It might be time to revisit it.
So if you don't have tickets in hand, get ready to pay up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have seen people speculating that, well, if something goes poorly for Michigan between then and now in terms of punishment, or they lose a game or something, that ticket prices are going to be down. I don't know about that. This feels like this is going to be a spectacle unlike anything we've seen, for good or for ill. Man, this is going to be one you talk about for a while.
Well, and it's more emotional than just a regular 1 versus 2 or any regular meeting of these two teams. The emotions have been ramped up. The stakes in terms of not just winning and losing, but everything that has gone on with this scandal and the ability to prove or disprove the importance of it. This is finally going to be a loud big house.
Super chat from Mike Smith. According to both Schembechler, coaches, leaders, and executives can't claim they didn't know what's going on. If they do, it just shows an ignorance towards their job.
But I mean, what does Bo know?
Super chat from Mike Smith. Has Central Michigan found out who 007 was on their sideline? Bala said, quote, no chance IMO on the extension stuff. Subscribe to Buckeye Huddle for more great content. Strong agree there. Hit the thumbs up, by the way, if you're still watching. We appreciate that. Would be a helpful thing for us in terms of other folks finding our content. And make sure you subscribe to the channel too, because I have this weird feeling this will not be the last time we talk about this. So if you're enjoying listening to us talk about whatever's going on tonight, good news. More stuff's going to be going on tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that.
I am still wanting to hear something from Central Michigan. It does seem like they're thinking they're going to go away. We're Central Michigan. Nobody cares. They're just going to move on. Let them go worry about Michigan. And at this point, I guess what else is there to say? Because they haven't yet come out and said, no, that was our guy. So obviously it is what it is, but there are still answers to provide in terms of how he got there, who led him there, what was the conversations like before, how did the arrangement to get him there, who got him the credential, who was he talking to, all of that, who had access to him, what was he doing there, what did you say to him, all of those things. And it doesn't sound like the head coach really wants to be any part of that.
No, Jim McElwain was kind of like, yeah, I don't know who that guy was. And he was at Michigan at the same time that Connor Stallions was somehow involved with the program. McElwain does not mean that he knew him. You may be traveling in completely different circles. But, I mean, it's an interesting coincidence that there were guys on the Michigan staff then who are on the CMU staff now. I do think that Central Michigan might be just kind of like waiting for next week. Like, we talk about a Friday 5 p.m. news dump. Whenever there's news on Jim Harbaugh or whatever the punishment is coming forward from the Big Ten,
2 a.m.
As soon as that comes out, that's when Central Michigan's going to go like, oh yeah, by the way, turns out it was Connor Stallions. And, but he's resigned now. So I think it's all good. And, hide under the pillow and hope it goes away. But I mean, there are questions still to be answered there. And, the level of interest in Central Michigan football is not quite the interest in Michigan football. So we will probably not break in with an emergency podcast whenever that all comes out. But yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to know, like, somehow he ended up on the sideline. He didn't just, get out his crayons and draw his visitor's bench pass. So how did, who got that for him? And then you've got this guy standing next to your run game coordinator on the sidelines. I don't know that I've seen video of him talking to him, but, it would strongly be suggestive that he was talking to him at some point if he's standing right there the whole game. So let's, I would be interested to know what the results of those investigations are.
Yeah, and how many other games he was at.
Yeah. Mike Farino, super chat, the MSU running things in from the sideline is such a weird defense. Like, as a direct result, MSU wasn't able to run tempo really or go no huddle.
That's another thing where, like, oh, just run somebody in. Just huddle. Like, you're not allowed to then. If you're huddling, you're not doing any tempo. If you're running somebody in, you're not doing tempo. Also, running somebody in allows the defense to match and bring somebody else in. So you can't really run tempo and trap the defense on the field. If you've got a defensive look that you like, you can't run plays in and then keep that defensive look. You can't take advantage of that. So, yeah, just wristbands, run guys in.
Why don't you just change your signs? Come on, do a better job of protecting them.
Right, exactly. All of those excuses, just everybody does it. You know, if you're not changing things week to week, you're dumb, or you don't know football. And anyway, stealing signs doesn't really help you. It doesn't, like, it's minimal. All of that is minimal. That is such bunk, because if you know a pass is coming, you don't have to worry about the play action. You don't have to move up. You don't have to bite on any fakes. If you know it's a run, you don't have to worry about there's a play from the 2022 Michigan game, Ohio State Michigan game, where it's a toss a run to the right, and you just see the safeties get the signal and then just come crashing down, not even worried for a second about a pass, stuff like that. When you don't have to worry about the throw or the run, and you can just worry about one. Don't give me the stuff about how, well, you still have to make a play. Yeah, you do. But if you've eliminated half of the playbook and half of the possibilities, that's going to make you much better, especially when half of the possibilities are we could throw it or we could run it. If you know one or the other, that makes you so much better. It makes you so much easier to defend, all of those things. It's an incredible advantage.
3-2 slider coming right now.
Yeah. And I have cited these stats on, I don't know, one of the shows this week, one of the 17,000 shows we've done this week. But there's a stat that MGO blog, the popular Michigan blog, they do a segment after every game called Upon Further Review, or UFR. And one of the things they track in there, they track every play and, like, who, you know, how what formation were you doing? What play were you running? How did it go? You know, did you hit your success rate? All that kind of stuff. And they'll track, like, hey, this guy made a great catch, or this was a great throw, or man, great coverage here. Or one of the things they track is called rock, paper, scissors. And it's just basically the other team and your team. One of you, if you had the perfect call for the play they were running, or your play that you ran really caught them on their back foot on defense, you get a +1 on that one. So on defense, Michigan against Penn State and Ohio State last year, normally you would expect should be about even. These are, you know, high-level coaching staffs, should be more or less even. Against Penn State last year, Michigan's rock, paper, scissors grade, according to a Michigan blog, MGO blog, 21 plus plays, 3 minus plays, +18. That is, I respect Brian's work on this kind of stuff. That is one of the highest grades I've seen. Against Ohio State last year, rock, paper, scissors, 24 plus plays, 12 minus plays, +12. These are these should theoretically be somewhat close to even if you're just doing this by pure chance. Like, hey, boy, we guessed right there. You know, you're playing rock, paper, scissors. Like, okay, I think Tony's going to throw rock, so I'm going to throw paper. But if he knows that I know, then he's going to throw scissors, and then I'm going to be in trouble, and he will have beaten me. That's the whole premise of this. You know, you're going to catch them all. Okay, it's 4th and 1. We're not going to just run it. We're going to pop a play action pass. We're going to take a shot. We're going to drive Khalil Mullings on 4th down, run towards the line, and then throw a jump pass. And boy, you catch Ohio State napping. If having signs is not an advantage, it feels like those numbers, I mean, you would assume those numbers will be similarly high this year because it's the same coaching staffs. So Michigan's coaching staff didn't get any dumber. Penn State's coaching staff didn't get any smarter. It's the same coaches. So let's see what those numbers are when they play Penn State and they play Ohio State this year.
It is interesting the amount of pressure now that is put on Michigan to perform as they've done all through the Big Ten season. Because now you've set the standard and you have proved that the standard wasn't ill-gotten. And the thing is, they could be playing well enough to do that, and they could very well do that because, again, Penn State's offense is not very good. Purdue's offense, not very good. So they've got a schedule. We'll see what happens with Maryland, who lost to Northwestern. So they're not very good. It's just not a great year for the Big Ten. So if you want to prove that you've never cheated, this would be the Big Ten season to do so.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because this might be the year that they've been caught doing it. But I think they're going to be okay on the field. But you've got to keep that level of play up, because if you take a dip, everybody's going to be saying, well, there you go.
Yeah, if you take a dip in that stuff, if you lose, heaven forbid they lose to Penn State, after Penn State looked like they did against Ohio State, and Michigan has
Indiana.
looked like, and Michigan has looked like Michigan has looked. There are Michigan folks who have had that one in the win column for a couple weeks now, based on how Penn State has looked the last couple weeks. Oh boy, if that one's close, we'll see what the response is. Super chat from T. Christian, Fox and ESPN, and analysts coverage on this has been so biased. Feinbaum has flipped his stance since the playoff reveal, and Klatt has been disappointing. Paul Feinbaum from ESPN was really on the this isn't that big of a deal kind of side of things, and then that has changed, and there's been some real swing against Michigan in ESPN this week. I don't know if that's related to some of the news that has come. I mean, we have heard stuff that has not come out yet publicly. It's possible that they have heard some of that same stuff that has not come out publicly. You can also chalk it up to, well, the Big Ten has two teams in the top three of the playoff, and ESPN is no longer affiliated with the Big Ten. So, they just want to get rid of they want to get one of the Big Ten teams out there. So there's no chance of the Big Ten getting two teams in. So that gives the SEC a better chance to get two teams in. Joel Klatt was sort of downplaying the severity of the thing. Joel Klatt, of course, works for Fox, which has the Big Ten TV contract. So, you've had varying opinions on a lot of this stuff. I would genuinely love to know what caused the flip in Paul Feinbaum, because he did. In the same way that we're talking about other people in the Michigan beat doing a 180 tonight, he did a 180 too. I would genuinely love to know the true answer on why.
Well, I don't know if it gets so deep with him, because it's Paul Feinbaum. And so what will create the most vocal audience, the most viewers. But when so many people at ESPN made the switch that day, it's like, what have they been told in terms of what else is coming, things like that? I think that is a fair question. Joel Klatt, I'm just looking at his Twitter, because he tweeted the other day, I think just yesterday at this point, about you got to let the investigation run its course, and very 2023 of us to demand some sort of action based on being really upset. This should and will run its course. One of his other tweets was, every infraction should be handled with the same process. To demand otherwise is a fool's errand. Doesn't matter who or what. Gather evidence, present evidence, respond, judgment, punishment. That's how it works. That's what's happening. And to say that it isn't, none of this is going to be decided by people talking about it like this. Nothing's going to be decided on Twitter. Santa Ono isn't going to check out at Tom Orr 4 on Twitter and see.
Thanks for the plug.
And see something. You know what? I hadn't thought about it like that. Let me give up Jim Harbaugh a call. I'm like, Jim, sorry, saw something on Twitter. Really hit me in the heart. And I hope your future endeavors are great, but they won't be here, because I saw something on Twitter. No, this is all being investigated within the bylaws of the Big Ten. And that's what, Tom, if you want to read through those law notes again,
no, Kevin, I have done enough. Did you watch the audience numbers drop as I read through those?
Yeah, Tom, I did.
I mean, and
like 500 people.
This is one of these things where we are really trying to inform you, and we're not.
People don't want information.
I know everyone just wants to be angry. Like, we can sit here and scream.
I'm angry.
I promise we're done. If you want to hear the Big Ten bylaws, you can go rewatch the Thursday episode of Buckeye Weekly, the live show, or rewind to, 40 minutes into the show or something like that.
I'm surprised we didn't get super chats for Tom. Please stop reading the law stuff. But it's necessary.
This is the stuff where this is the stuff you have to do in order to have an informed conversation about this. Because Lord knows we have seen plenty of uninformed conversation about this from people large and small over the last couple weeks. And there's been a lot of like, just throw something against the wall and see if it sticks. And let's say something that's going to make our audience happy and, make the other people give you the big thumbs down. And that's ultimately not productive. Ultimately, you are, number one, you're kind of becoming an unreliable narrator for your audience, which is not helpful and not good for your credibility long term. But number two, like, your job is to inform your audience. Like, that's what we're here to do. We're here to tell you when we're covering a game, like, hey, what is happening at the game that you can't see from at home on TV or sitting in the stands, whatever. That's our job. In this case, our job is to tell you, like, okay, you don't have time to sit there and dig through the Big Ten sportsmanship guidelines. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it, and we're going to give you, we didn't read the whole thing. We gave you the relevant sections of it, and it was long and it was boring, and we're very sorry. Eat your vegetables. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you don't get your dessert until you eat your vegetables. And, I don't know, what is dessert in this case? Do we have to start yelling about stuff? We can start yelling about stuff.
No, Tom, it's too late. We're going to get a knock on the door. The informed audience aspect of it. I got a tweeted at me a couple of hours ago at like 9:00 on a Friday. This is not the start of Piano Man, by the way, but 9:00 on a Friday, I got a tweet saying, basically, stealing signs is okay. Stealing signs is legal. And I thought we were past that. I thought we were 3 days, at least a week past the fact that, yes, stealing signs is legal. That's not what is being discussed here. And so I just tweeted, like, I hadn't thought of it like that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Stealing signs is legal. And coaches know that you can steal signs. That's why they cover their mouth when they call plays. Oh, now I know it. I feel ashamed for having thought that stealing signs in other ways was wrong.
I'm just scrolling through Twitter just to make sure nothing crazy is broken now. Kevin, if something else crazy has broken, please let us know.
I'm looking. I have to look via my phone.
Yeah. Okay.
Via the computer, we lose the story.
Yeah. All right. Super chat from Omar Austin. Get some sleep, boys. You have a huge day tomorrow. We do, in fact, have a football game at noon tomorrow. I saw someone on the stream saying, if you just keep this up for another 12 hours, it'll go right into the pregame show. Yeah. We will, at some point, need to sleep. We do have
2-hour show.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Kevin says it's a 2-hour show, so we will get you to 2 hours.
We haven't
another
really
20-something minutes.
We haven't really done like a live pregame show, but I keep thinking the Michigan thing is going to be. We're just this will not be our solemn promise to you. This will not be the last time we talk about Ohio State and Michigan. We might even talk about some actual on-field stuff at some point. Can I please tell you how much I hope we get to talk about that? Like that's the fun part of this. This is not the fun part of this. This is the okay. We're going to be real careful with everything we're saying, and we're going to, make sure we're being on point with this stuff. This is not the fun part. Like, let's get to the fun part where there's blocking and tackling and touchdowns and what have you. Omar says, who gave Tom a Red Bull after 10 p.m.? That fella is pumped. Shout out Lobby Coffee. I have been waking up very early in the morning the last few months to walk my dog and stuff. And I'm generally going to bed at 9:00. It is 11:58 p.m. And here we are still awake. Yeah. So I will at some point turn into a pumpkin, and tomorrow morning is going to be rough, but here we are. Well, we left the restaurant a couple of hours ago at this point, and Tom gets out and he's near the car and he yells, "I'm going streaming."
That's not exactly.
So it's almost midnight. My A material is way gone. I'm sorry.
Stephen Light says Michigan fans are whistling past the graveyard. Petiti has all the Big Ten presidents lined up behind him because the future bad news is coming.
They have been. I think they might be starting to wake up.
Well, and when was the last time he met with the Big Ten presidents? Because we've heard about the coaches. The coaches was Wednesday night, right? And the Big Ten ADs was Thursday night.
We haven't been told that he has actually met with the presidents, but we assumed it was coming.
There was something. And this is when I've read 5,000 articles, and I'm being so careful about what I'm reading and listening to because I don't want something from a less reputable source to kind of bleed into my brain. But there was some kind of a Tony Petiti meeting with the Big Ten presidents at some point. It may have just been a regularly scheduled meeting, But in the last couple weeks, I think it might have been during this, but it was not like he met with the Big Ten presidents today or yesterday. This is a little while ago. So I don't know that we can say with extreme certainty the Big Ten presidents are lined up behind it. The Big Ten football coaches are, and it sounds like the Big Ten athletic directors, broadly speaking, are. You would assume that would then lead up to the university presidents, but I don't know that we can say that with 100% certainty right now.
Do you think anybody is pounding the table for Michigan?
Given that the report was that Harbaugh wasn't in the meeting and then Ward Manuel wasn't in the meeting, I don't think there's probably anyone. You might have people.
Maryland voting present.
Well, you might have people saying, hey, I think we need to wait on this to a certain degree. You don't need unanimous votes for this. Even on the committee that would allow the Big Ten to put more serious penalties in place, I believe that it was, they needed like a 70% vote or something like that for that committee. I believe that was the number, but the committee has to approve it. It did not say unanimously. The committee had to approve it. So you don't need unanimous support. And there probably are a variety of opinions on, hang him at noon versus, hey, let's wait another, hey, I really want to see, what do you have on this? I want to see a little more on this or that. But, broadly speaking, I would expect that things are sort of starting to line up in a certain way. Eden Sukanovich says, so what's the Ballas report? Can't find. This is from Chris Ballas at the Wolverine. This was kind of the reporting was done behind the paywall. It was spread far and wide, which is why we generally are, as a paywalled site ourselves, we generally are very careful to respect the paywall. This is stuff that was reported very far and wide on, I think someone said it was on MGO blog. It was put on Twitter. It's been all over the place. I'm going to read the first one that I have. This is the earlier one. The Michigan administration met with the Big Ten Friday, prepared to fight for head coach Jim Harbaugh and his staff, having taken him at his word that he had no knowledge of analyst Connor Stalions' actions involving illegal on-site scouting leading to sign stealing. They were even moving forward on a contract extension for the coach that would have made him the highest paid in the conference. Here's your turn. Sources tell us the Big Ten presented Michigan with, quote, overwhelming evidence, unquote, of, quote, a plot so extensive, unquote, that in the words of one at the meeting, quote, someone should have known, unquote, the U of M administration met for some time to discuss the options going forward. As of now, Harbaugh is expected to coach against Purdue tomorrow, but more evidence has continued to mount that would, at the very least, put the extension in doubt. This is not expected to prevent the team from competing the rest of the year. We'll continue to provide updates as we get them. One other thing that came in from Kevin, he sent it to me during the show. As we've said, in these kinds of cases, it's about stacking good days together. Today wasn't one of those. If Michigan doesn't act on Jim Harbaugh, and it hasn't yet, as we've said, the plan is for him to coach Saturday night. Sources believe the Big Ten could levy an, quote, indefinite suspension, unquote, as soon as Monday, after which Harbaugh's only recourse could be to file an injunction to keep coaching. If he gets the right judge, he could continue coaching for months as long as Michigan supports him. We do believe President Santa Ono could support that, even with the new evidence emerging, which is likely to claim at least one more assistant coach at the end of the year. If anything else damaging comes out, though, they probably wouldn't have a choice. And again, the NCAA has just started its investigation. Again, as some president said, quote, if he didn't know, he should have, unquote, and the Big Ten came out swinging and didn't back down. They made some big threats. I think some are interested to see if they're ready to back those up. And then the rest is, as for analyst Connor Stalions, he has a lawyer. I don't think he'll be talking to anyone. If Harbaugh is suspended or can't coach, offensive coordinator Sharon Moore will probably be the guy. And if nothing further comes out implicating Moore, for example, that could be the case for the foreseeable future. Again, everyone, Big Ten, NCAA, just seems to want Harbaugh. And then one more, there was one Big Ten rep, someone asked, how can anything be nuclear for, quote, in-person scouting violations? Are we missing something? The response was, one Big Ten rep told someone in the athletic department, quote, it's the worst scandal in Big Ten history, unquote. True story.
Yeah, the fact that there are still so many people thinking that the in-person scouting violations, that's the main thing or one of the main things. But clearly, as you say, like that's bad.
Mhm.
But what would make it this so bad? And it's like, well, sounds like there's more coming. But even alone, that's the thing we have to remember. Even alone, this is bad enough.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what else is coming. What has already happened, what has already been proven to the Big Ten enough to already be concerned and warning other programs, hey, this is going on, this is being investigated. Like already what has happened is bad. Whatever else happens after that, obviously it's going to be bad as well. But this, what we already know or what has already been reported, somebody's already resigned from this. So clearly this hasn't been good.
Yeah, super chat from Mike Farino says he meaning Tony Petitti had a short call with them, meaning the university presidents earlier today. Okay, that was one of those things that probably has just escaped our notice. Assuming that's true, a short call. The Big Ten head coach call was 90 minutes, and I think Jim Harbaugh was on for the first 30, and then dipped off, and then there was another hour of Big Ten coaches. It sounded like voices were raised and
hashtag real talk.
Hashtag real talk may have occurred. And, so an hour versus a short call, I don't know how much of that was an update, how much of that was, just sort of a, here's what we've let them, we had a conversation today. Here's what we told them. Here's where we've left things. That doesn't sound like I'm asking for action, but
update.
Yeah. An update like further bulletins as events warrant, basically. Super chat from Omar Austin. It is officially my wife's birthday, gents. Oh, happy midnight and happy birthday to Omar's wife. Is it too much to ask for a happy birthday, Tracy Austin, from from top media personalities such as yourselves? Well, I think, wouldn't Kevin have to say that?
Happy birthday, Tracy Austin.
Happy birthday, Tracy Austin.
Happy birthday, Tracy Austin. Thank you for spending your birthday with two idiots on a couch in New Jersey, just as I'm sure you dreamed your entire life.
Do you think Tracy's watching, or is just Austin right now? Well, Omar, rather.
I mean, I'm sure she's watching too.
Well, Omar said that he usually spends the grocery money on Super Chat, so thank you, Tracy.
Tracy may be finding this out just now. Thank you, Tracy. Sorry about you.
Thank you for blowing up Omar's spot, Kevin.
No, he'd already mentioned it before.
No bounty this week, only generic paper towels.
Yeah. Are we caught up on Super Chats?
Have we won?
We are.
Okay.
We are at an hour 47.
Okay.
If you want to start the
we can.
segment.
I think we can put the flaps up. And,
yes. Is the last segment?
Put your
Jordan Kapler is
all
right.
Super chat from Jordan Kapler. Oh man, here's a curse thought. Michigan new head coach Dabo Swinney. Can we save the Michigan hot board for another show?
Oh my gosh. We have to say
I'm not
Tyler from Temperance.
I'm not Tyler from Spartanburg has logged on the chat. I'm not emotionally prepared for a Michigan hot board show right now, but and let's be careful here. We're not at a point where there is any need for a Michigan hot board. Michigan still has a head coach. His name is Jim Harbaugh. Further bulletins as events warrant, but the trend tonight, based on the reporting out of Ann Arbor, has pointed towards we might be having that conversation at some point.
Yeah, and who knows what Sunday is going to bring, what Monday is going to bring. The 5 o'clock news dump.
Sunday is going to bring an 8-hour drive home to Columbus, which I can only imagine is going to get in. Okay, so we're sitting on a couch in New Jersey right now, talking to the lovely folks at 12:08 a.m.
Almost 1,500.
So can we put a hot board together for where the next show happens? Because I think my clubhouse leader is like the New Stanton rest area on the Pennsylvania Turnpike or something like that.
Valley Forge rest area.
Should we sell squares of the zip codes?
Oh man,
Super chat the squares. The rest areas don't have great Wi-Fi, I'm
Well,
guessing.
We might-
Neither do the hotels.
Yeah. We might find out. Yeah.
Maybe from Der Dutchman somewhere. I assume, do they have any Wi-Fi?
The Amish, famous for their
Yes.
Wi-Fi. Yes. It's
the first thing they put in the barns.
it is going to be first of all, we are probably going to be, first of all, hey, we are going to be covering the Ohio State
Yep.
Rutgers game on Saturday. We'll have a pregame report for you on injuries and all that kind of stuff coming at 10 a.m. Game starts at noon. We'll have our usual postgame show starting right at the end of the game. YouTube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. Do those 3 things real quick. You will thank us later. This is like when I tell my kids to go to the bathroom before we get in the car. Like, I don't want to. I don't have to. Go do it right now. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe. Hit the bell. You'll thank me later. We'll be back after the game for post-game coverage. And then we will be back on this couch because, man, oh, man, I cannot wait. Alabama, LSU. We had talked like, oh, well, I don't think it'd be fun to sit and watch that game. Good luck getting me off of Michigan Purdue tomorrow night. I cannot wait because I don't have a clue what to expect.
No, and that's going to be the fun part. But I won't be surprised if it's the same old, where it's just this slow, marauding suffocation from Michigan's offense and defense.
All right, super chat from Mike Farino. And all right, I am reading a super chat. I am not reporting this on my own. I just saw this message on one of the boards. Jeremy Birmingham, and Austin Ward from the Rivals Ohio State site mentioned tonight that they've heard there's an expense report that was signed off by Jay Harbaugh. Now that's, that when you go back to the Jim Tressel case, the whole Jim Tressel case hinged on one guy sent him an email over like Easter weekend saying, hey, I heard there might be this thing with tattoos and players exchanging like bowl memorabilia for tattoos. And Jim Tressel acknowledged that with an email like, hey, thanks or something like that. Like, so you couldn't say, I didn't see it. That was it. That was what tied that whole case together. Now, this is Omar's, right? Was it Omar? Whoever it was, Mike Farino. Sorry, we've had a lot of names tonight. Mike's relaying what Berm and Austin are reputable, respected reporters. We work with them. I like them both quite a bit. They are not BS artists. So if that's what they're reporting, I think I put some stock in that. If that's the case, then that's where this all really starts to maybe sort of coalesce, where it's like, okay, well, now you have an assistant who has signed off. If this is true, you have an assistant who has signed off on the expense report, presumably for one of these in-person scouting trips, which are illegal. So then, okay, so now you have a staff member who has put pen to paper on this. That's the significance of that. We're not reporting that. We are just relaying, here's some of the information that is out there. If it is true, here's what that could mean.
Well, and just in general, trying to keep plausible deniability about something requires a lot of care. Like, you've got to be careful with paperwork. You've got to be careful with interactions, and if there is a smoking gun of a signed receipt or something like that, then you've just lost that plausible deniability. At least that person has.
Yeah.
And if that would be the at least one assistant that Chris Ballas was referencing as somebody who is maybe implicated themselves, we will see. But again,
and Mike says, I was reporting what someone else said they said. So we're playing a little bit of a game of telephone. We have really been making a point to not do that. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is what, so this is what has been relayed to us. We, I think the much more significant piece of this is broad strokes. Hey, there's a major change in terms of tone, content, everything that leads you to believe that, okay, whatever, we have been waiting for any number of other shoes to drop for like a week and a half now, at least a week, and kind of going, okay, there's enough smoke around a lot of this stuff that it's not all fake, but we don't know exactly what's going to be real, so we're not floating any of that stuff. This, the change in tone is somebody found out something they didn't know and went, oh, that's really the crux of this whole thing. And then where does that go? Whether it's tomorrow or Sunday or Monday, that's the next big question.
Yeah, you've got people who are cautioning their subscribers now, preparing them that something might be happening.
Right. And that's a big thing, because I think, your super chat for Omar. She was watching. Thanks, Kev. My super chat allowance was just reduced. Dang it. She should be able to send super chats for her birthday. I mean,
what better way to spend your birthday?
Right, exactly. Watching two.
Out of trouble.
Yeah, we're keeping him.
Hey, use that $5 that your grandmother sent you for your birthday. Super chat it. Now I feel like a televangelist.
Yeah, that's Ohio State prosperity gospel. That's what we're doing here.
Big old tent revival right now.
All right, I saw someone on there. Telling us to go to bed. Yes, and it is 12:15 a.m. on the East Coast.
We are planning on getting out of here around 7:30, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
So we'll see how we do now. But yes, we will be at the Ohio State Rutgers game in like 7.5 hours.
Yeah. Go to bed, wake up, go to work.
Hi, Steve.
So
hi Patrick.
Hey, Patrick Murphy. That will do it. As soon as Pat gets here, that's when we leave.
that does seem to be how the evening has worked. Yes.
So I want to thank everybody. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for tuning in on a Friday night. Thank you for so many of you guys tuning in, chatting, keeping it. Well, I don't know if it was civil in the chat. I wasn't watching, but Kevin says it was not. Hey, that's fine. At least it wasn't directed to me, and I know some of it was. That's fine. I did not read that, but thank you for tuning in. As always, find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member there. It is a fantastic way to support what we do. So thank you all, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.